Claire Mitchell used to be a top law student at Chicago West University. Sharp mind, clean record, and a best friend who was more like a sister, Emily Graves. Everything was perfect, until Emily was raped at a fraternity party by Brandon Teller, a golden boy athlete with university connections and a fake smile. Claire watched the system fail her. The university investigation lasted 2 weeks. No charges were filed, no suspensions, no apology. Emily dropped out in silence. 3 months later, she was found dead in her apartment. Pills. Claire found the note. They made me feel like I was the crime. I can't live like this. That was 2 years ago. Claire never went back to law school. Now, she worked nights at a downtown cafe. Quiet, invisible. She smiled politely, poured coffee, and listened to customers complain about cold foam or under-toasted bagels. No one remembered her as the brilliant future prosecutor, just another face in a city full of broken dreams. But tonight, she opened a folder she hadn't touched in months. Inside, 8 names, every one of them connected to Emily's case. Brandon Teller, the rapist. Coach Simmons, who pressured Emily to stay quiet. Dean Reynolds, who buried the complaint. Detective Kyle, who told Claire to drop it. And 4 others who laughed, lied, or looked away. Claire took a pen, drew a red line through the first name, Brandon. It starts now. She pulled a small box from under her bed. Tucked inside were hospital records, printed text messages, a voice memo, and a bottle of sleeping pills that Emily had never finished. Evidence, pain, fuel. Claire wasn't going to scream in protests or post hashtags. She was going to tear them down, one by one. She wasn't after justice. Not anymore. She was after balance. Claire studied Brandon Teller's public life with surgical precision. The Golden Boy quarterback, 22 years old, charming smile, future NFL draft pick, adored by media, women, and his university alike. But Claire knew what hid behind that polished image. She'd watched Brandon from afar for months, mapping his nights, his habits, his weaknesses, his favorite bars, the girls he preyed on, the way he laughed off consequences like a king immune to law. Tonight, Claire slipped into one of those bars, a crowded, dimly lit place where the rich and reckless came to lose themselves. She wasn't there for fun. She was there to send a message. Dressed in a simple black dress, she caught Brandon's eye as he sat surrounded by his usual circle of admirers. Smiling innocently, she approached him, ordering a drink. "Hey," Brandon said, flashing his signature grin, "you new here?" Claire nodded, her voice soft but steady. "Yeah, just looking to have a good time." His friends laughed, betting she'd be gone by midnight. But Claire had other plans. She let him buy her a drink, listened to his shallow stories, laughed when necessary. Then, as the night deepened, she leaned in and whispered, "You don't remember me, do you?" Brandon's confident smile faltered. "No. Should I?" Claire's eyes burned. "You forgot Emily." "I didn't." Before he could react, she slipped away into the crowd, leaving behind a single note on the bar. "This is only the beginning." Back at home, Claire smiled coldly. The first move was made. The next morning, Claire woke early. Today wasn't about charm or confrontation. It was about unraveling the system that protected Brandon Teller and his kind. She pulled out her laptop, fingers flying over the keyboard as she hacked into university records, public files, disciplinary actions, emails. Most were scrubbed clean, but beneath the polished surface, she found traces, deleted emails, suspicious meeting logs, payoffs disguised as scholarships. Dean Reynolds, the man who'd buried Emily's complaint, was the architect of this cover-up. Claire printed everything. The corrupt emails between Reynolds and Brandon's coach, Simmons. The notes about silencing witnesses. The demand to keep things quiet before it became a scandal. This was no accident. It was a carefully crafted conspiracy. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." She smiled, barely. Threats were expected. Claire wasn't afraid. If anything, this only confirmed she was on the right path. Claire's phone rang late that night. The number was blocked. "Claire Mitchell," a cold voice said. "This is your only warning. Stop. Walk away." She recognized the tone, Dean Reynolds' enforcer. A man with more power than he let on. "Tell him," Claire replied calmly. "I don't scare that easily." Emily didn't deserve silence. Neither do I. The line went dead. Her heartbeat quickened, but she didn't back down. Instead, she doubled her efforts. Using every contact she had, Claire began leaking pieces of the evidence anonymously to investigative journalists. The campus buzzed with whispers of a scandal brewing, a storm gathering just beneath the surface. Her revenge was no longer personal. It was becoming public. Within days, local news outlets picked up the whispers Claire had sown. Anonymous tips revealed suspicious emails and unexplained university actions. The media frenzy began. Brandon Teller's pristine image started to crack. Sponsors hesitated. Teammates whispered behind closed doors. His charm no longer blinded everyone. But with the spotlight came risks. Claire noticed a black SUV parked near her apartment, a silent reminder that powerful people were watching. She never let fear show. Instead, she prepared for what was coming next. Her list was still long, and she was just getting started. The black SUV's presence became constant. Claire's every move was shadowed. Phone calls ended abruptly when she answered. Friends grew distant, afraid to get involved. One evening, as she left work, a man stepped from the shadows, Detective Kyle, the same who dismissed Emily's case years ago. "Claire," he said, voice low, "this isn't your fight. Walk away before it gets ugly." Her eyes locked with his. "It's my fight now, and I'm not afraid of ugly." He hesitated, then backed off. Claire knew this was just the beginning of a war with unseen enemies, but she was ready to fight. Claire knew brute force wouldn't win this war. She had to be smarter, more elusive. She started setting traps, fake leads, forged emails, anonymous calls to stir paranoia within the university and police. Her goal, turn them against each other. A confidential memo leaked to the press hinted at corruption inside the dean's office. Coach Simmons was suddenly under investigation. Brandon grew more reckless, desperate. Claire watched from the shadows, feeling a grim satisfaction. The predators were falling apart, but she never let her guard down. Claire's campaign of exposure wasn't without cost. Her landlord raised the rent unexpectedly. A stranger slashed her tires in the dead of night. Friends who once stood by her grew cold, whispering about the danger she brought. The threats escalated from whispers to shadowy figures lurking outside her apartment. But Claire's resolve hardened. She thought of Emily's last words, the note filled with pain and silence. "No one will forget her. No one will get away." Claire knew the road ahead would be lonely, but this was the price of vengeance. One evening, Claire met with an anonymous source, a whistleblower inside the university's administration. The source handed over a flash drive packed with incriminating evidence, cover-ups stretching beyond Emily's case, years of ignored complaints, bribed officials, and silent victims. Claire's eyes scanned the files. Names, dates, emails, a web of corruption far bigger than she imagined. This wasn't just about Brandon Teller anymore. It was a system built to protect predators and punish victims. Claire felt the weight, but also a fierce fire inside. Her revenge would be for every silenced voice. Armed with the whistleblower's evidence, Claire planned her next move meticulously. She contacted a trusted investigative journalist, Lena, who had a reputation for exposing high-profile scandals. Over late-night meetings in hidden cafes, Claire handed over the flash drive, outlining the story that could shake the university and the city. But threats escalated. Anonymous messages warned Lena to back off. Her phone was tapped. Her car was vandalized. Claire knew the deeper she went, the more dangerous it would become, not just for her, but for those who dared help. Yet, she refused to retreat. "This ends now," she whispered. The article dropped at dawn, a scathing exposé revealing the university's decades-long cover-up, implicating Brandon Teller, Coach Simmons, Dean Reynolds, and others. Public outrage exploded. Protests erupted outside the campus gates. Sponsors pulled funding. Police opened official investigations. Brandon's image was shattered. He became a pariah. But with the public came desperate enemies. Claire knew the fight wasn't over. It had just entered a more dangerous phase. She stayed in the shadows, watching the chaos unfold, knowing her plan was working. The backlash was swift and brutal. Claire's apartment was broken into, nothing stolen, but the message was clear: she was being watched. Her phone buzzed with threatening texts, her friends distanced themselves out of fear, and false rumors about her character started circulating. But Claire stood firm. She knew fear was their weapon. She refused to let it break her. Instead, she intensified her efforts, digging deeper, exposing those who tried to silence her. Her fight was no longer just for Emily. It was for every victim silenced by power and privilege. Claire uncovered a shadowy network of wealthy donors and politicians who funded the university and ensured silence around abuse cases. These puppeteers pulled strings behind the scenes, buying loyalty, manipulating investigations, and crushing dissent. She traced money trails, shell companies, and secret meetings. Her revenge was no longer just personal, it was systemic, and she vowed to dismantle every last piece of the corrupt empire. Claire devised a risky plan to catch the puppeteers in the act. She planted false documents hinting at a massive scandal involving illegal donations and bribes. Using an encrypted email, she baited key players into meeting her at a secluded location, a downtown warehouse. On the night of the meeting, Claire hid in the shadows with a recording device, capturing every word, every deal, every threat. This evidence was her ultimate weapon. If she played it right, the whole corrupt network would crumble. The recorded meeting was explosive. Powerful figures confessed to bribery, witness tampering, and silencing victims. Claire handed the tapes to Lena, who published them immediately. The city was rocked. Suddenly, arrests followed. Dean Reynolds, Coach Simmons, and several politicians were taken into custody. Brandon Teller's name was dragged through the mud in courtrooms and headlines. But the cost was high. Claire's anonymity was shattered. She had become a target, exposed and vulnerable. With arrests made and the city buzzing, Claire's world grew darker. Her apartment was vandalized. Threatening notes appeared on her doorstep. She barely slept. Friends she once trusted avoided her calls, afraid of being dragged into the storm. Yet, despite the loneliness, Claire felt a grim satisfaction. Emily's voice echoed in her mind, urging her to push forward. But the hardest battle was yet to come, confronting the final pieces of her list. With the major players behind bars, Claire turned her attention to those who had enabled the system quietly: lawyers, secretaries, and minor officials who helped bury complaints. She tracked down each one, exposing their lies and forcing confessions. One by one, they cracked under pressure, revealing the full extent of the conspiracy. Claire's list was nearly complete, but the biggest challenge awaited: Brandon Teller himself. Claire's heart pounded as she stood outside the downtown courthouse. Brandon Teller was being released on bail, his arrogance barely masked by a forced smile. She'd waited for this moment for years. Inside the courthouse lobby, their eyes met. He sneered, "You again? Didn't learn to stay quiet?" Claire's voice was cold and steady. "I'm not the one who should be afraid." She pulled out a small envelope. Inside were new evidence and a statement from a victim who had finally found courage. "This ends today, Brandon." Brandon laughed, but Claire saw the flicker of fear beneath. Her revenge was almost complete. The courtroom was packed. Media buzzed. Claire sat quietly, her eyes fixed on Brandon as the new evidence was presented. Witness after witness came forward, empowered by Claire's relentless pursuit. Brandon's smug facade cracked under the weight of truth. The judge's gavel finally fell. Guilty. Brandon Teller was sentenced, not just for his crime, but for the decades of silence he embodied. As he was led away, Claire felt a cold satisfaction. Revenge wasn't justice, but it was enough. The city slowly calmed. The university faced reforms. Victims found voices. Claire's name was whispered quietly among those who fought injustice. But Claire wasn't the same. The battle had changed her, the loneliness, the threats, the endless fight. She stood alone on a chilly Chicago morning, the first rays of dawn cutting through the cold. Her phone buzzed. A simple text: "Thank you," from Emily's sister. Claire smiled faintly, a bittersweet victory. Revenge had taken everything, but maybe, just maybe, it had given something back. She folded the list, tucked it away, and walked into the rising sun.